What's up, poker people of YouTube? Welcome back to the Voting Vlogs. If you couldn't tell, I'm on a cruise ship right now. Obviously, it's kind of dark, so you can't see. You can see the water right there, but it's kind of dark. Obviously, recording this at basically 9 p.m. We're gonna go play some poker at the casino here on the cruise. This is a Harmony of the Seas Royal Caribbean. Gonna get a vlog-in session for you guys. I played the past 2-3 nights. Currently up like $400. The games are super soft. You have to be patient with the dealers and the players though, because a lot of them are recreational. Learning how to play, younger people or even adults that are just trying to gamble because they have nothing else to do. So let's get straight into the vlog. It's a 2-5 buy-in for 100 min, 500 max. So cap game, 2-5, hold 'em. You can do the undergun $10 straddle, but it's kind of crazy to do so given that the stack sizes are so shallow and then the rake is really atrocious. 10% up to $15, but let's get straight into the session. See you guys in the Casino Royale on Harmony of the Seas. So it should be no surprise to my viewers that we're buying it for the max $500, looking to cover everyone and getting the max value that we can. In this first hand, we don't really have much going on, but to give you an example of what type of play you're seeing, the short set limp calls a raise of $30, and then he bets $45 of his $55 effective stack on 7-4-3 with pocket jacks. So yeah, just a little taste and feeler of how the people play on this cruise so far, and a little bit of a taste of how recreational they are. In our first hand of note, we looked at a pocket nines in the small blind. There's 3 players that limp to $5. We go ahead and make it $30 and everyone folds. So you're going to find a recurring theme and pattern here of a lot of limp calling as well as a lot of limp folding to any type of aggression pre-flop. Right now the table's 6 hand and we looked at 4-3 of hearts in the big blind. Definitely think we are one of the stronger players. So when there's 3 limpers and the button makes it $15, we go ahead and make the call, and the limpers all call as well. So we have 5 players going to flop, which comes 9, 8, 9, 2 hearts in a club. We flop a flush draw and it ends up checking through. Turn to 7 hearts, giving us that flush, and we go ahead and bet $30. The low jack calls and the rest of the players fold. Rivers is 6 of clubs, so now we're going to target any type of straight as well as trips. We go for a sizing of $55, but unfortunately the low jack folds here. After a few hands, the table is now 10-handed, which is absolutely ridiculous. This cruise is obviously just trying to make as most out of their rake as they can, trying to get the pot bigger, faster, and they can do that by making it 10-handed. So 10-handed this hand with ace queen offsuit under the gun. We open for $20. Only the +1 and the small blind call. 3 players to flop, which comes ace 6-3 rainbow. We flop top pair with a pretty good kicker. So when the small blind checks, we go ahead and c-bet for $25 and both players fold. Moving right along, we look down at ace-10 offsuit in the small blind, the +2 cutoff limp, but it makes it $10 with only $65 effective. We go ahead and 3-bet to $30. We're willing to get the $65 in with him. Somehow the big blind +2 cutoff and button all call. So we're going 5 ways to flop, which comes 9, 4, 3 rainbow. It checks to the cutoff who bets $50 and everyone ends up folding. So yeah, a lot of limp calling and a lot of limp folding in this table. Looking at a pretty good hand in this one, it's pocket tens and the hijack, the +2 limps. We go ahead and make it $20. Only the small blind calls and everyone else folds. Heads up to flops comes jack, 5-3 rainbow. Small blind donk leads for $5. So not much to do here except just make the call. It's basically a check, so we're going to make the call. Turns the 8 of clubs. Small blind now checks, and we have showdown value, so we check it back. River is the queen of spades. Small blind checks once again, and with our showdown value on a board where there's 2 overs, we just check it back. And the small blind shows jack 7 offsuit. So yeah, small blind obviously calling very wide pre-flop and then just donk leading with a top pair and not getting any more value after that. So yeah, minimize our losses in this one for sure. Looking down at pocket nines once again and low jack, the under the gun limps. We go ahead and make it $20 and all players fold. So once again, limp folding and stealing money as many times as we can. The pre-flop hands do not get rake, which is kind of nice. So that is the one benefit to this, I guess, of stealing in a very soft table. This next one, we're on the button and we look down at king 10 offsuit, the +1, +2 all limp. +3 now makes it $20. The cutoff calls 200 effective. And we now 3-bet. I think this is a good spot to 3-bet and try to take it down, making it $80. And surprisingly, the cutoff calls. So
flatting the open and then flatting the 3-bet. Flop is ace, king, 8, 2 hearts, and a club. So we flop second pair. And the cutoff just donk leads for $100. So they're going to do this with a lot of ace X's, probably a lot of ace rags. So we're just going to have to let this one go and live to fight another day. So unfortunately, our plans to steal the dead $50 or so didn't really work out. But in this next one, we have 6-4 of clubs on the cutoff. Sorry, no footage for this one. But under the gun, +2, and myself and the small blind limp the $5. The big blind makes it $25. And everyone calls except the small blind. 4 players to flop, which comes 10, 9, 6 rainbow. And it checks the mean position, and I like to bet $55 here, given that no one really seems to be interested in it, and the big blind who raised pre-flop should be continuing with all their pocket pairs or better. The big blind is the only player that calls, and the rest of the players fold. Turn is now the 8 of spades, and the big blind checks once again. Given that we just have showdown at this point, I like to check this one back in a semi-bloated pot. River's a 5 of hearts, not really changing much of the board texture. A 7 on the turn would have been a straight regardless, so the 5 does not change anything on the river. Big blind now leads out for $90, and the line doesn't really make a lot of sense. I like to call here because he should have been leading with all jacks, queens, kings, aces on the flop. And if he really did have some type of 7x hand, he probably would have barreled on the turn. But there's not too many of those types of hands within his range. The only hand that he really gets value from in this spot is literally something like Jack 10 or Ace 10. And he probably would have led with those types of hands on the flop as well. So we do make the call, and the big blind has Ace King offsuit. So really good call from us to give us a pretty nice chunk of profit. Back to having some footage for you guys. We looked down at Queen 5 of hearts in the small blind. The hijack makes it $15, cutoff calls, and I would never suggest playing these types of hands, but in a pretty soft field in which you can get away from hands and also print money, I think it's okay. So I like to make the call, and the big blind calls as well. 4 players to flop, which comes queen, queen, 5, which bink, we flop a full house. Unfortunately, it does check through, however, and on the 7 of diamonds turn, I like to try to get value from some type of 1 diamond card flush draw hand, and I go for $25, pretty small value, and unfortunately, everyone does fold. Looking down in the low jack at pocket 8's the snowman, the +1 limps, +2 makes it $25. We go ahead and make the call, looking to set mine. The hijack calls, small blind no goes all in for $62. Big blind folds, the +1 folds, the +2 ends up calling. I like to make the call, looking to get some more implied odds and print more money if we hit our set. And the hijack calls as well. So 4 players to a pretty healthy pot of ace, king, jack, 2 diamonds, and a club. Checks to the hijack, who bets $100, and the +2 folds and I fold. The hijack ends up having pocket kings and takes this one down with his set. In the +3, which is so weird to say because we're 10-handed, looking down at ace 10 offsuit, +1, +2 limp, we go ahead and pop it up to $30. The button and big blind call, and the rest of the players fold. 3 players to flop, which comes 10, 4, deuce, rainbow. We flop top, top. Big blind checks. We go ahead and c-bet for $55. And surprisingly, both the button and big blind call. Turn is jack of spades, so there's an over to our 10 now. So the big blind checks. We're going to go ahead and check this one back with our showdown, and the button checks as well. River's the ace of hearts, giving us 2 pairs, so we probably have the best hand at this point. Big blind leads for $40, which is super interesting. It would be really shy and timidish of me if we just call here, so I think we have to go for a raise here to get value from worst 2 pairs, or maybe even a non-believing pair, as well as any other ace X that might have hit the river. So we go for a raise to $100. The button folds, and the big blind does in fact make the call. The big blind shows ace 4 offsuit, and we're good with our ace 10 here. In this last one, we look down at king 10 offsuit in the +2. Under the gun limps, +1 limps. We go ahead and make it $20, and only the limpers call. 3 players to flop, which comes jack, 8, 4, 2 diamonds, and a spade. Under the gun just donk leads for $25. The +1 folds, and we have an easy fold here. We don't really have any more outs except backdoor straights and diamonds. But when people donk lead in these lower stakes and softer games, they usually have it. So easy way to get away from.
So leaving the Casino Royale on the cruise, in the game for 500, out of the game for 920. That's a profit of $420. Yeah, not much to say. You have to be patient with the dealers. They're obviously more trained to do pit games and stuff, table games, blackjack, baccarat, craps, all that stuff, not poker. So definitely you have to be patient with the dealers for sure on these cruises. But help them out. They can get annoying sometimes because I try to help them, and then they're like, don't touch the cards or whatever. I'm trying to like push up what the winning hand is or whatever, and then it is what it is. But yeah, in the game for 500, out for 920, profit of $420. Cruise games are for sure soft, and yeah, not much to say other than that. Very standard stuff. You just wait for your hands. Don't go too crazy with bluffs. Make sure you can read the players correctly, understand how they're playing hands. Very fundamental level of poker where you can just print money. Can't print as much as you would in Texas, obviously, because buy-ins cap rate is atrocious, but free money is free money on these cruises. You get to pay off a lot of your excursions and everything. So yeah, if you made it this far, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.